Are you self-aware or are you self-monitoring? This is the question that those of you who are on a healing journey should be really asking yourselves, because there is a huge difference. And the difference is between the actual growth when we're talking about the self-awareness, or exhaustion if we are talking about self-monitoring. So a lot of people actually are confusing self-awareness, a true, warm, but honest self-awareness, with self-monitoring that basically leads to urgency, to build up of pressure, to perfectionism, to judgment of self and other people, to a lot of actually very destructive patterns. And that's why the discernment between the two is huge, because we're talking about your internal dialogue, and your internal dialogue is constantly almost like narrating your reality. It is narrating now. It's like the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak about other people in your actual mind. That is the discernment then between the self-awareness and self-monitoring. So I want to give you some specific markers for what is self-awareness and what is self-monitoring. So you're going to be able to discern between the two and switch if you notice that this self-monitoring voice is actually taking over. So healthy self-awareness is warm but honest. It's based on reality. It can take feedback from reality, from life. But obsessive monitoring is very almost like compulsive, very urgency based, puts a lot of pressure on you and onto other people as well. Judges, compares to other people, and basically creates that constant loop of like perfectionism and exhaustion. And that's why a lot of people actually burn out on their healing journey, because they don't actually know the discernment between self-awareness that creates space for you to grow, and self-monitoring that actually creates pressure and urgency, so it basically diminishes you. So let's start with self-monitoring, because I want to really dive deeper into that, and then let's move on to self-awareness. So you're going to be able, like I said, to really distinguish between the two, therefore properly progress on your healing journey. So self-monitoring is usually quite critical, sarcastic, perfectionistic, comparison-based, judgmental, and black and white voice. And the examples could be, I should have done it differently. And of course, there is a difference in tone, because yes, sometimes we could have done or should have done things differently, but there's a tone. The tone of self-monitoring voice is a tone of urgency and pressure and judgment. So it's like, more like, it's almost like a frustration and anger with yourself. You can feel that voice is really shaming you, guilt tripping you. It's very much like, I ruined everything, I'm always like that, why I can never know any better, why I am still struggling, why other people are healing faster, or whatever the comparison is. So as you can see, this self-monitoring voice really creates a specific emotional tone. Yes. So it creates that tone of frustration, the tone of anger, the tone of shame, urgency, guilt, and pressure. So as you can see, this is definitely not a genuine growth. This is more like internal surveillance. And let's dive slightly deeper into perfectionism, because perfectionism is actually really toxic, or you can use any word, but it is not toxic, but it's not very healthy, and it's not actually useful and beneficial for you on your healing journey. So perfectionism, it's almost like, is that voice that any mistake that you make, it's almost like dangerous. So therefore, and this is the interesting bit, because this perfectionism almost like keeps you in the loop of your old patterns, because if you cannot experiment with new behavior, with pivoting and adjusting sometimes to what feedback life gives you, then it's almost like you're shutting down in those old patterns, because you cannot experiment, because the perfectionism is like, oh, you experimented it, see, look what you've done. So every time you do something new, every time you try a new approach, and let's say you fail, because again, this perfectionist voice, it expects from you, it's almost like, imagine you go to, I don't know, swimming classes. You wouldn't think that you're gonna like swim after first class. The same is with healing, guys. You have to really apply those, the skills learning into this psychological arena now, because healing requires experimentation and requires failure. Do you know how many times I failed on my healing journey? God knows how many, but a lot. My clients failed as well, but they kept on standing up and moving on and learning from every mistake. So perfectionism keeps you stuck literally in your own patterns, because you cannot experiment safely. So you avoid still difficult conversations, you avoid maybe dating, you avoid boundaries, you avoid emotional reactions sometimes. And we do have emotional reactions. It's fine for you sometimes to react, but maybe then with the right person, you can still take a step back and maybe apologize, maybe actually, have a deeper, more intimate, more vulnerable conversation, because your emotional reaction in the moment can be used to build a healthy relationship. But if you're stuck in that perfectionist, self-monitoring voice, you won't be able to do that. So you're not going to be able to experiment with friendships or, making any mistakes, because everything will be considered to be failure. So that's why, the nervous system then, so your body, when you are operating from that mainly self-monitoring, self-internal surveillance voice, your nervous system will be very rigid and will be shutting down a lot, because you're going to be scared to do any moves, to make any new moves, because you're going to be scared of that internal judgment. And a lot of you guys, specifically what I'm talking about, because we did, a lot of humans have that voice. I had that voice, and I know when that voice switches on, I'll be like, oh, hello, good old friend. Okay, didn't hear you for some time. Now you're coming back. A lot of the times as well, I want you to notice that this voice is really comparing to other people, and it creates a specific dichotomy. I mean, you feel either superior to other people, so some people are less healed than you, so they are, worse than you, or it creates this inferiority thinking that's like, oh, other people, are so successful and I'm still stuck, all this dialogue, superiority and inferiority, guys, this is really important that you're going to address that, because it's a fallacy. You cannot outgrow if you're still thinking in terms of comparison, like I am superior or I am inferior. All of us are simply different. All of the people, so people, let's say, who are, I don't know, even if you want to call it like, on a different level of awareness than you are, they are not worse than you or better. They're simply different. And we have to start accepting that. So self-awareness, so this is, I would say, the self-monitoring voice and how really that voice looks like in practice. Now, when it comes to self-awareness is softer and warmer, but it is still honest. So that self-awareness will allow you to be softer towards yourself, but does not mean that it's not gonna hold you accountable, because we gotta hold ourselves accountable. And also, I want you to notice one thing. Self-monitoring voice, it's almost like, I would say, a lot of times we are literally almost like born with that. This is part of our hardware. And of course, depends sometimes when you were born and, in which country and which family, etc. But a lot of people with trauma, the self-monitoring voice is part of the, it's like part of the hardware. So you have to learn the self-awareness. And when, again, you learn a new skill, so you learn a skill of a different internal dialogue with yourself. Therefore, you have to think about, okay, how would I be soft but still hold myself accountable? So, okay, I made a mistake there. Okay, can I pivot? Can I adjust? Can I do something maybe differently next time? Maybe, because, and again, it depends on the mistake that you made. Maybe you made a mistake in a friendship. apologize, have a conversation. That is progress, that is movement. So self-awareness will not gonna allow you to collapse into shame, to collapse into anger, to collapse into frustration, although feeling those emotions physically, somatically in your body is very useful for the progress on your healing journey, but that is another matter. So feeling the emotions but not acting from them, yes, that is yes. So the self-awareness is not dramatizing anything. It's like, so it's not making a biggie out of something that is actually small. So, think about, those times when you were maybe emotionally immature, like the amount of times we humans are emotionally immature. Sometimes we do behave like, like little adolescents or like children, and it's fine. Apologize, have that conversation, admit it, and see what sort of relief you are actually feeling when you have that honest conversation with someone, with another human being. And then a lot of the times people, real friends, will be very like, it's fine. I wasn't even thinking about it. So this is really important, that you're gonna allow life to give you feedback, and self-awareness, building that very healthy voice of self-awareness is crucial in terms of your healing progression. So taking objective feedback from life, this is really important, because self-awareness is really based on reality. So yes, of course, we have to, and this is what I said in my other videos, we have to be connected to something bigger than ourselves. So yeah, religious, spiritual, whatever beliefs you are holding, these are your beliefs, hold on to them, perfect, your purpose of life, yeah, that's great. But also you have to take feedback from reality. So it's almost like, when there's a fact in our life, something bad happens, a loss happens, and whatever that is, take it as, okay, I can feel, wow, this is painful, but this is the reality. So it's not about, self-awareness will not going to allow you to escape into fantasy, to escape into self-hatred or superiority or inferiority complex. So as I said, self-awareness allows you to experiment, allows you to pivot, allows you to adjust, allows you to observe, allows you to act without the urgency, without the pressure. Self-awareness allows you to heal. That internal voice will allow you to heal. And it's not almost like turning every mistake into identity. It's like, oh my God, I'm a failure. No, you just made a mistake. That's it. That literally is that. You made one mistake. And again, the self-monitoring voice will have a tendency to dramatize the mistake. Oh my God, this is the worst thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. So ask yourself that question. Are you self-monitoring yourself? Are you allowing that internal surveillance, or are you being just honest with yourself, with the warmth, with the softness? And if you need help between distinguishing which one's which, if you struggling with maybe perfectionism, with maybe really a lot of rumination, book a session with me. You've got the links down below. It's very easy to book it on my website. So yeah, have a read, look at the clinical evidence that I gathered from the feedback from my clients, so you can see how I'm actually working. All that is on my website. And yeah, I'm gonna see you in my next video. Bye bye.